So, morning everybody. We have got the rather wonderful Jackie Wilson with us from Empower Education, and our topic this morning for our little "So What Is" chats is: so what is empowerment? We hear this lots, and I don't think we always make it clear what that means, and I don't think we always ask then what somebody means by that. You all know now that we work in the field of emotional education and neuroeducation, and Jackie also, as well as running her own businesses, is a co-founder of Positively Empowered Kids. And I will pass over to Jackie to introduce herself and tell you a little bit about her business.
Hi, thanks Amanda. So yes, I'm Jackie Wilson and I am a mum to 3 children. My eldest is 23, my youngest is 11. I have 3 businesses. So Empower Education is my baby, if you like. It's where I started all of this empowerment work with young people, which is my absolute passion, empowering young people. Empowerment to me means helping whoever I'm working with to really understand themselves, to gain the knowledge and the tools to be able to navigate life more easily, because life throws a lot of adversity our way. Throughout our lives, we're going to experience it. And we're not always educated at school or at home purely because we don't have the knowledge as parents, because we haven't been taught at school, or maybe in our own younger lives, to know how to navigate these challenges. So for me to be able to share insights into how to feel empowered and how to step through life with awareness and strategies and formulas to be able to deal with life, to me is what I'm all about. And that comes from my own life story of not being empowered and seeing life was happening to me and that I was affected by life and that I wasn't good enough in the world, and having some grief hit me at the age of 10, which I never dealt with until I was mid-30s, because I just didn't know that I needed to. But for me, life happened to me. When I came into a place of kind of understanding a lot more about me, about how I work through lots of different therapies and techniques, I started to realize that I can make life happen for me. And to do that, I had to be very self-aware, start to notice what was happening in my inner experience, and then put things in place to take some positive action so that I could help myself grow and get into a place where life was good. And obviously you have your down times. We're always going to have those times that we're not going to feel great, especially in times like the COVID time that we were experiencing. You know, we're going to have those moments, but to have the ability to navigate through it is powerful. And that's, for me, what empowerment is. We can have those times that are difficult, but we know how to get back up again and find our way back to where we want to go. It's kind of that aeroplane analogy that I like to use. So an aeroplane is on autopilot, just maybe going somewhere, but you don't really know where you're going and how to get there. It's just automatic. This is what our brain's like if we don't take control of it. Whereas if we put a pilot in the front of our mind and we start to notice what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what somebody's saying, and whether that's to do with us or not, and then knowing where to go to get the information or who to speak to, we're the pilot of our mind, and we can go in a direction is where we want to be, you know, to fly in life, to reach our potential. We've all got an incredible potential. There's not one person who doesn't. Not one person who doesn't have a huge potential. But we limit ourselves, and we limit ourselves because we're on autopilot.
Yeah.
We can open up and start to discover just how incredible we are, and this is what I do through the coaching element, by tapping into what type of person we are, what our qualities and strengths and skills are, so that we can step into who we are, step into our own power and strong in life, and realize that we're worth something.
Yeah.
And that go far. So for me, that's what I'm all about, you know, so that young people get that information when they're young. They don't have to wait until maybe reach it when they're older. And also parents, a lot of parents, and I was one of them, didn't feel that they were a good enough parent, felt a failure as a parent.
Yeah.
Actually, we're doing the best we can with the knowledge we've got. And if we can grow that and look for ways to do that, then we can become better and better parents, and we can grow with our children in our skills. Because it's a job that we're thrown into with no qualifications, no rule book, no full guidebook that helps that individual unique child to grow into their potential. So we make mistakes, but too many of us are too hard on ourselves. And that, for me, is something that doesn't need to happen, because we are incredible, and we love our kids, and we want to help them the best we can, and that's important. So that's Empower Education. And then Emotions Toolkit, which is another part of that. So with Empower Education, I have kind of the self-awareness, the mindset, the resilience, the self-belief, social awareness. There's so much goes into my programs and my coaching. One of the elements is resilience. And for me, being a mindfulness teacher as well, is the resilience, again, is something we lack. An Emotions Toolkit for early intervention and prevention, it, for me, is a great way to grow our mind health. I tend to change the word of mental health because of the stigma, but
100%.
mind health, grow that from a young age. From around about 3, we can start growing our mind health. So putting in the moment strategies into a child's day that they can manage and start to learn how to manage frustration, worries, sadness, any of those kind of lower level emotions before they get into that crisis and they kind of flip their lid. For me, is important that we start to develop their brains and the pathways so that they know what to do, and they've got a go-to thing to start to manage those emotions in the moment, so that we can dissipate that emotion and we can then carry on, because our nervous system's back into balance. And that, for me, is important. What happens, as you know, is people build and build and build and build and build these layers and eventually blow. And we want to try to teach people, whoever that is, it could be a child, a parent, an educator, because this toolkit works for everybody. It's adult techniques that are used in yoga and mindfulness that we have kiddified. That's our kind of word. Yeah. And not a dictionary word, but it's a word we've kiddified to make it accessible to kids. And it means that everybody, the whole school community, family community, we can all benefit, because we can use those tools and co-regulate together, have our own strategies, but support each other. And into that, I bring the neuroscience, which I know you're very passionate about, because it is, you know, neuroscientifically powerful for children's brains. You know, it's got all that in it. And we teach children from the age of 7, if not younger, about the brain. We teach parents and educators about the brain and how it works. That's empowering to have that knowledge.
Absolutely. So the Cambridge Dictionary says that empowerment is to give someone official authority or the freedom to do something. And I think freedom and authority over self and choice is really, really important. And we do live in a time where in lots of different areas that's not necessarily a given. And you said about parenting, which is really interesting. So some people know and some don't that, you know, I'm come under the label of an SEN parent. So my journey as a parent was guided by professionals and others. I wasn't an empowered parent. I parented to a structure that was given to me. And I certainly didn't feel like I had the freedom or authority to challenge that at certain points. And it's only now, obviously, I can have conversations. My daughter's 25. She's actually very grounded, and considering, you know, what she's been through, she's doing all right. She doesn't see it, but, you know, she's on her journey. So that's something that she's got to go through. But in terms of parenting, and accessing this information for parents, it's these conversations are so important. And I think sometimes explaining the language makes it that little bit easier to have a conversation about it. Yes, I'm passionate about the neuroscience, and your programs and and the many programs that are available, and I'm sure you'll tell me more about the bigger picture later, is that my work it's a very basic stepping stone. I'm passionate about the idea of giving children just enough science, children and families enough of the science to understand how interventions work. Because what I find as a practitioner is that interventions are offered, and because they hear the word emotion, they hear yoga, they hear mindfulness, they hear regulation, and I think it feels sometimes a little bit inaccessible because I don't know what it is, and I think where there's gaps, that information is always fed through to the families that need to understand what is being offered. So for me, I like this idea of a springboard of some really, really basic understanding of how the brain and body works, so that then the understanding of why those things can work really, really well, and how you can have the freedom and permission to adapt them to yourself and empower yourself. So bringing that sort of in line with what you're doing, that's where they sort of work well, and collaboration is key. That's something that you guys put across all the time.
And I think what I find is, because I have resilience leader programs that I run in schools, and how they work is a journey from taking a child to feeling that life's happening to them with their emotional states, to a place where they are empowered with the knowledge and the ability to then share that on. So what we do is we work with them, we teach them first and foremost about how the brain works, how these techniques work, and what part of the brain it's developing, what part of the brain you're managing, so they can see that, they can see what they're doing. And so then they start to buy into, because they've got the why bother? They get the why. And then they start realizing that if I do this tool and I start to take these deep breaths in this way, this is what's going to happen. This is the part of the brain I'm working from and growing stronger. It's like we call it a super brain, superhero brain. Whereas the other part of the brain is the brain that is reactive and is putting them into a fear state, which might not be needed. So if it's just a spelling test, or a friend's just said, I'm not your friend anymore, and they've got really cross or upset about that, it is not a real dangerous situation. So therefore, it's the point that we can actually start to regulate ourselves, so we can make better decisions, and we can create a better way through of talking it through, or asking for help, or managing ourselves, so we actually become a better friend. We can do better in the world. And then we ask them, once they've learned all those tools and they've been practicing them, okay, so how would you teach this to the rest of the children in the school? And so they start to develop their own plan of becoming a teacher, leading sessions, what those sessions look like, and then they go into the classes and they do it. And we just stand there as a guide just to flow it along, but they do the teaching, and they walk away from that going, oh my gosh, I can now teach other people about this amazing tool. And you can, when you're actually teaching anyway, you get a real experiential feeling. It comes over you when you have a whole class of children experiencing a calming technique, this self-regulation, this bringing our nervous system back into balance. It's tangible, you can feel it. And so children then get that feedback that they've actually helped these children to be calm, and it's kind of embedding it for them personally. Right.
And that embedding of these processes is my biggest passion, and that's where I've been lucky enough to do a pilot for our local virtual schools program, and we did a conference day where we did training, and the training was that I made all the adults do the children's program. And it was really interesting, because actually, and a lot of them said it was uncomfortable, because they had to do very simple exercises, but they had to be real, they had to be in the room, they had to acknowledge some of the things that they responded to, they had to look at what their bodies were doing, and some of them hadn't done it for sort of 20-30 years, or had never been challenged to look at how they respond to situations. And the feedback was really powerful in that, in forcing, and they were forced because they didn't know that that's how they were going to be training. They thought they were going to come and watch some theory. They did have the theory, but they had to do what the children have to do as well, because I don't believe that you've probably done all your exercises because you do them with your children. And if we expect children to engage and go through that journey, then we need to know what that journey feels like.
Yeah,
and that's
totally agree.
Yeah, that's where that whole idea of the embedded process, so it's now making that wider, isn't it? Getting the children to teach their parents and their grandparents and out in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. I did last year a European funded program. So I wrote it was a SEND program, so the special educational needs program for employability. So it was to work with those young people who didn't believe in themselves, didn't think they were ever going to be anything, never could be successful in life, and work on a self-education program with me. So 8 sessions to actually be able to step up into that, oh, I'm more than I thought I was mode, that empowerment again. And as I was doing that, I was also training people from 4 different countries. So Malta College was one, Pedal Consulting in Slovakia, and so on. And I experientially taught them that program.
Yeah.
So they did not just get trained to teach it. They went through it personally. And at the end of it, there was some real powerful feedback. The deputy director of Malta College said this needs to go in at leadership level. And the Pedal Consulting, the CEO, he said it's changed my family life and my work life.
Yeah,
just that I never knew this stuff, never knew it, and it's just incredible to me to get that feedback, because I just think education needs to incorporate a subject for children to develop the self, who they are, how important and valuable they are in the world, and how to navigate life. It has to happen.
And I think it's coming. So from 2020, there is a legal requirement to include social emotional learning within the PHSE curriculum. Now I know from experience that in some schools that's quite a small area that's taught, and in other schools that's obviously a bigger area, because, and what people don't realise is that although schools are graded on points and a system, they're actually completely individual entities. And Michael McKnight, who runs a program in America, he calls them living systems. And it's this idea that within that system you have everything you need, but when it's so scripted, you're not necessarily empowering, you are delivering and passing on, so that the experiential process is not necessarily as active. And I think that's where, you know, sort of the individual practices and the individual practitioners can be a big part of that. So when I first studied, one of the first philosophers I came across, and I'm a huge fan of a guy called Donald Shon, and I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he wrote a piece, and in it really guides how I try and work. But he wrote this piece that identified that hard high ground overlooking a swamp and a swampy lowland, and what this idea was, that in the hard high ground you have policy, you have direction, and you have instruction and a requirement for box ticking, and in the swampy lowland you have this chaos that we're working with children, emotion, families, and trying to keep on top of that within a system that requires you to evidence everything that you do, which isn't possible in terms of personal growth and development. So I like to think that myself and you guys, especially in terms of positively empowered kids, is that people are starting to be less insular and come together in collaborations and start to try and move some of this conversation into that middle area. And I know there's been some studies called Mind the Gap. I don't really like calling it a gap because it's not a gap, it is a place. And I have worked in it for 10 years independently.
Yeah.
The only reason I've been able to work in it 10 years independently is because where I started out, no one was offering that service. You know, if I want to take a year to work with a child, I'll take a year. If I want to take 6 weeks, I'll take 6 weeks. That process of experience is different for everybody. And that's not so easy to evidence for funding. So you've got this real, you know, difficult position. So tell us a little bit about positively empowered kids, because that is really spoken to me as something that is promoting this coming together in the area between and helping sit in the grey area a little bit easier.
Yeah, definitely. This I'll tell you where it started for me, and obviously I am co-founder with the lovely Claire Clements. From my perspective, what happened was, it was about 3 years ago, just over, I worked with a 13-year-old who'd been through the CAM system, who had been self-harming, suicidal. She tried it twice, gone through CAMS, come out worse. For her, that didn't work. And her dad's words were, "I've got no hope. I don't know what else we can do." What happened is, because he knew my husband, we kind of connected. And I said to him, okay, so counselling's not worked. So I'm not going to do that, because I'm a trained counsellor, although I've left that behind now. What I'll do is I'll spend a bit of time with her, educating her about herself, so she understands who she is and starts to understand the brain, you know, all those sort of things. So we did. 5 sessions later, she walked away feeling really strong in herself, and did not need, and she's not needed anything since. No. She's been fine. She just needed to understand what was happening for her, how to deal with friends who were being unkind, that it wasn't personal, and that she just needed to see where they were coming from, and that potentially they've got something going on for themselves that is affecting the way they're speaking to her and seeing her, perceiving her. So she got all that, she just got it. And I stepped away from that thinking, I'm not the only person. I know a lot of people around me that do incredible things. And what if she hadn't found me? What if I wasn't right and I couldn't put her on to anybody else? So then I sort of connected with my network, and I started to go, right, we need to come together. And so we had a first meeting. It was called the Wellbeing Hub back then. And we all came together. There was probably, I don't know, 15 of us in Nottingham that came together, and we just had a discussion about how can we make this work. That kind of just became a Facebook group and sat there for about 3 years on the shelf. I got busy with my business, and I knew that it wasn't mine to own. It was something that was there. Last January, I just was driving home from teaching some kids yoga, and I had this idea that we needed to have a festival to bring everybody together, families together, to bring experts together. And I've been having conversations, so it was a building up between Claire and our other co-founder, she's now an ambassador, Susan Brooks. So we decided to co-run this festival. 3 businesses came together, and we decided to collaborate to bring a family festival together with lots of people like yourself that came on the day. And as you know, we had the most incredible experience. People with the same passion for the next generation in a room together, in an environment together, and connecting with families. And it was just so beautiful that there was all this connection that went on. People were just wanting to know about each other and what we all did. It was like this need that we all had to know about each other. Families were really benefiting from the sharing. And it was just, we knew that it was right, what we were doing. And so that's Positive Empowered Kids was born that day, properly. We then, because of all the beautiful connections we'd made, and then that was it. So we decided to start a network group in Nottingham. to then be able to people to come together in a space and talk and to get to know each other, to share what they did, to collaborate with or connect and collaborate. The possibilities there. I'm a big collaborator. I think I'm a serial collaborator. I just love working with people. You know, I'm just not a natural person who likes to work on their own. I prefer this connection. So yeah, it then became something bigger than we had anticipated. It sort of started to grow. And now you are starting the third network group. So we have Essex, and now Kent is beginning, and then Cambridge is coming. And off the back of that, because of the COVID situation, it stopped us in our tracks. So we couldn't meet in person. We couldn't do the festival. What could we do? Because it's so needed. What we were doing was so needed. We'd become a social enterprise in December. And so Claire and I particularly have been working really hard to bring some online content for families with the collaboration of other professionals. And we do not work with people who have this competitive element. That's not our ethos. It doesn't work. We need to come together. And things have already happened. People are collaborating here, there, and amazing things are happening. For me, it creates greater provision for the family community, and we can grow and learn from each other. We all have different skill sets. Why can we not grow together?
Yeah, 100%. And I've said from the very word go, from when we came up, you invited us up to Nottingham, and we had the best time. And I've never been so comfortable in an environment with so many people who are selling the same ideals and the same processes, because at the end of the day, everybody's earning a living, so everybody has a business, and I certainly didn't feel that it was competitive in any way. People were friendly, supportive, and open to sharing, and that's what I found with the network groups as well, is that you know, there's that competitive edge simply isn't there, and that you know, we all react to I don't want to use the word toxic, but you know, I think you get a sense if there's competition, or if someone's not comfortable, or if there's an edge to a conversation. You pick up on that, because you know, your system picks up on that. That's what it's for. Your other senses, as Minnie would tell me to talk about, because I haven't just got 5.
No.
So and that just wasn't there, and I do pick up on that really easily, and I'm also a bit oversensitive to that, so that would be something that I would notice really, really quickly, and I haven't felt it at all the whole way along. It's just been joyful to be around other people and share ideas, and I'm excited that we can model that in Kent, because there are good pockets, but you know, for me, it would be nice to bring together a pocket of like minds and sort of see what we can come up with.
I think the business world anyway is becoming more innovative, and you know, this is where we can really make a difference, because gosh, we need to really step up our own mental health and well-being. We need to each be responsible for growing our mind health. In this arena, it's really given us the opportunity to innovate. So if you've got a coach and a counsellor, what can you do together because of your different skill sets? That it's incredible. So Emotions Toolkit is a collaboration between me, a mindfulness and yoga teacher, counsellor and coach, with a primary teacher and an artist. And that collaboration, you've got the primary teaching experience and skill set with the kind of more holistic side, and we've blended it, and it works so well. You know, it's just taken it to another level. I could have done it on my own. It wouldn't have had the same power. And
you are now an award-winning, funded social enterprise, because you've won an award, and you've started to receive your first lots of funding are coming through, and that, you know, that just something that one of the things that was said to me at the festival was, I spoke to Ali, Knowles, who is the author and the creator of the Ollie books and the Ollie coaching model, which is fantastic. And you know, we were talking about programs and whether to do an Ollie course or not, and I said, well, I've got my TAM practitioner course starting soon, and she said there isn't a one size fits all. And it was a good reminder, because I was tired and it was at the end of the day, so I was a bit, oh well, I'm doing my TAM practitioner. And I think the more I've done these networks, is that what you're offering is that between us and our varied approaches and ways of working, there shouldn't be a child that's left out.
Exactly.
When you work in that way, rather than, you know, I know there is a particular type of child I can reach easily. I also know there's a particular group of children that maybe wouldn't like, I'm a bit noisy or a bit boisterous, that they would find that very uncomfortable. They need a softer, more counselling approach, you know. And one of your lovely ladies does animal therapy, so maybe you don't even need a person.
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
so lots of successful work with children and horses, actually, and dogs. So it might even be that a person's not for you, but I think having an organisation that can access that funding to support all of these lovely programs, is just a fantastic thing. And I'm really excited for you, because I know how hard you have all really worked.
Yeah, and I think that's our next step. You know, we've got all these ideas, but the next step is to have a hub of workshops, courses. It's going to grow. We're going to do the first stage now. We've got some funding, so that a family can come to our hub and they can find you, they can find me, they can find the counsellor, they can find all the different elements that they can just tap into and try. Yeah. So they don't have to kind of then do that searching for themselves, and they will connect with people and people will resonate with them.
Yeah.
And then they can go directly to them if that's the right person for them. But it's opening that people's minds to, it's not just CAMS or the doctor's surgery and then CAMS. And CAMS want to work with it. You know, Nottinghamshire CAMS, they really want to see how we can then build that bridge, so that we can be the early stage before it gets to the stage where they're really desperate. And that's exciting that we can be that part.
And I think
you're
really excited.
I'm really excited about it.
Good. And I think it's fair to say to CAMS, they were never designed for the early intervention work. They were designed to treat mentally unwell children. Absolutely. And not the deluge of children who have mind health dysregulation.
Yes, totally.
There's a big difference, and the stigma, the language that has been used and the stigma around that has I think caused an impact. But that would be a whole nother interview on a whole nother day, because you and I both know that we'll get completely sidetracked and stay off topic, and we're sticking to empowerment and giving people choice. So having that network where people have choice, have authority and have freedom to find the best fit for them, and not have it prescribed for them in a way that ticks a box on a policy sheet. So, you know, well done. I just think it's an amazing thing, and I'm so enjoying watching it grow, and I'm so excited for you.
Thank you, Amanda. Appreciate it.
So I think we probably should leave it there, otherwise we'll be here all day. Thank you for sharing your time, and I'm sure we'll speak again. So I hope people understand a little bit more about what empowerment can be, and then a little bit more about some of the work we do, some of the language that's used, and that it might be helpful to someone. But it's certainly, I think it's certainly helpful within our network that we're having all of these conversations at the moment, because it is creating more content and more conversation, and that's only a good thing, can only lead to more empowerment and more freedom.
Definitely. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks for having me.
No, take care. Thank you.
Bye.